On part one of the 2013 Year's Review program was the news report of the NYPD giving the reason for surveillance of certain Muslim mosques and leaders. These same Muslim leaders responded with a lawsuit requesting the release of the information gathered on them by the NYPD. New York Daily News, November 1st, 2013. Quote, the head of the NYPD Intelligence Division warned a federal judge that the release of internal documents sought by plaintiffs in a Muslim-biased lawsuit will expose New York City to grave danger. In a 25-page affidavit, Deputy Commissioner David Cohen said the sweeping demand for virtually every document generated by the Intelligence Division since 2004 would be a jackpot if it got into the hands of evildoers, unquote. The piece goes on, quote, the suit filed in Brooklyn Federal Court on behalf of two Muslim men, two mosques, and a charity say they have been subjected to unwarranted scrutiny because of an alleged practice of religious profiling by the NYPD. City lawyers have largely rebutted that claim recently by disclosing that the investigations of the six named plaintiffs were based on legitimate leads of possible criminal activity. But the city is strongly opposing a demand for documents relating to NYPD investigations and surveillance of non-plaintiff Muslims and Muslim organizations over the past 9 years, unquote. And finally, quote, lawyers for the plaintiffs contend that they need the documents to show the NYPD has a discriminatory policy and practice of investigating Muslims based on their religion, unquote. On our last program, featured earlier this year, although videotaped last year, Imam Talib Abdul Rashid, head of the Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood located in Harlem, mentioned filing a lawsuit in 2013.
And they're going to get challenged, man, in court. They haven't happened yet. The New York lawsuit is not in yet because it's being worked on. But there will be a lawsuit, man.
New York Daily News, December 4th, 2013. Quote, two Muslim leaders have taken the NYPD to court to get files on the department's surveillance of them and their organizations. Talib Abdul Rashid, Imam of the Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood in Harlem, and Shamir Hashmi, a former student leader of a Rutgers University Muslim group, said police denied them access to their own files, claiming the documents are exempt from disclosure under the Freedom of Information law. In separate actions, both filed November 26 in Manhattan Supreme Court, the men said the NYPD's denial was illegal because it did not provide a more detailed, specific justification for the refusal. They asked the court to order the department to release the records, citing a recent Associated Press series of reports on the NYPD's Muslim surveillance activity after 9/11. The men said the police have steadily monitored mosques, including Rashid's in Harlem, and student organizations like the Muslim Student Association at Rutgers, where Hashemi was treasurer for 4 years, unquote. New York Daily News, October 25th, 2015. Quote, in a 60-page opinion issued this month, a panel of the Third Circuit Court of Appeals ruled unanimously that a challenge to the NYPD's controversial Muslim surveillance program could go forward. The court didn't decide whether or not the program actually violated the constitutional rights of New Jersey Muslims, but it did conclude that the plaintiffs had provided enough details about discriminatory police surveillance that they should be allowed the chance to make their case. Along the way, the court smacked down a few of the police department's favorite talking points. According to the NYPD, Muslims were not harmed by the surveillance itself, but rather because the spying was exposed by the Associated Press. The court described this argument as, quote, What you don't know can't hurt you, unquote. But the injury alleged was discrimination, the court found, and that if proven was not the fault of the press but the police. The NYPD also maintained that it wasn't targeting Muslims but simply keeping an eye out for terrorists in their communities, unquote. The piece goes on, quote, while the NYPD's motive in monitoring American Muslims may be perfectly reasonable, their targeting of surveillance based on religion rather than suspicion of wrongdoing was unconstitutional. Nor could the program be justified simply by the overall needs of national security, the court held. Given substantial allegations that the police had targeted people because of their religion alone, the NYPD had to show that its response was tailored to meet its counterterrorism objectives. It failed to meet this standard. As the court reminded us, there are good reasons that the Bill of Rights insists that the government is not allowed to discriminate, unquote. For more information, go to the ACLU's website at www.aclu.org. New York Daily News, January 8th, 2016. Quote, the controversy over the NYPD's oft-criticized Muslim surveillance program ended Thursday with a landmark settlement and the cops under a new watchful eye. The deal, announced by police and the New York Civil Liberties Union, resolves a pair of lawsuits brought against the police department for its post-9/11 probing of the city's Muslim community, unquote. Quote, under the deal, the mayor will name a civilian attorney from outside the NYPD to ensure the department's work follows the established guidelines. The appointee will serve a 5-year term, unquote. Quote, the attorney would also have access to the mayor and a federal judge if any concerns arise, unquote. And finally, quote, NYPD counterterrorism czar John Miller said the settlement would not change any current departmental policy, unquote. It seems as though the circuit court's decision may have had an effect on the deal reached by the New York Civil Liberties Union and the NYPD, most probably because a body of information illegally obtained from the surveillance program would be revealed for public and legal scrutiny, resulting in a public relations disaster for the NYPD.